Well, with that said, now officially welcome everybody out to our weekly Actives Opportunity Call. It is a pleasure and an honor to have a guest presenter with us this evening, Dr. Larry Martin. I know that you're a busy man. I know that you have a lot of different items that are pulling for your attention, demanding your time. So we do appreciate you, as always, taking some time out of your busy schedule to share some of your wisdom and knowledge with us, specifically as it pertains to LINQ, the science behind it, and the medical validation behind this incredible, one-of-a-kind, cutting-edge technology that many people are already seeing tremendous health benefits with. And so I know we have a lot of guests on this evening that would like to understand a little bit more about it. So with that said, I'm not going to take a whole lot of time from you. If you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit, and I'll go ahead on my end and get the presentation pulled up and ready for you, Dr. Martin.
Good evening to my ACTIVZ family. I'm Dr. Larry Martin, alias just Dr. Larry. And tonight I'm honored to be with you and be able to talk a little bit about the health benefits of the LINQ product. And I want to do that via the recent slide deck that has been provided to us. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so what is butyric acid? Well, if we talk about butyric acid, we know it's a short chain fatty acid, which are very small molecules that affects our body in a number of different ways. It's produced naturally in the colon as a result of the food that we eat, specifically if we're eating high fiber diets. And it's also generated through our intestinal bacteria. It has it activates signaling molecules that begin at a psychological or physiological response at the cellular level. These receptors are generally membrane proteins which bind to signaling molecules outside the cell, and subsequently they transmit the signal through a sequence of molecular switches to internal signaling pathways. Some of us might be aware of what that sounds like. Well, it's essentially the NRF2 activation, if you will. When you activate these proteins, the proteins allow the signaling from the outside the cell to be generated into the nucleus to be able to turn on genes. This is the epigenetic portion of how this product functions. Let's go to the next slide. So what is the human microbiome? The microbiome is comprised of at least all of the microbes in our digestive system. The humans depend on a vast army of microbes to even survive. And the microbiome protects us against unhealthy bacteria and breaks down our food, releases energy to produce vitamins, and certain fibers, prebiotics, and intestinal bacteria in the microbiome produce our butyric acid. We also know that scientists estimate that there are at least 100 trillion bacterial cells in our body. And that's roughly 10 times as many cells as the cells that make up your body throughout your entire structure. Researchers believe we have only identified less than 10% of the total bacteria in our body thus far. And if you remember, some of you may have seen a post I placed on a study that was just released a week or two ago, where they identified another 2,000 new microbiome bacteria that had never been discovered before. So if you think about it, if we only understand roughly identify 10% of them, there's a lot more that we'll be hearing about as scientists and this particular portion of the science progresses onward. Let's go to the next slide. So getting to know your gut biome. This is a great slide because some people, when they want to learn a new science or new information, it's good to do it into examples. And so when we talk about our microbiome, we know that it weighs as much as 2 to 4 pounds, and then it's 95% of our own bacteria live within our gut microbiome. That means another 5% lives in a variety of places throughout the body and even outside the body. So we know that there's bacteria under our arms, behind our ears. Well, I'll let you figure out the anatomy. It's pretty much everywhere. Our GI tract has a total area of over 4,300 square feet. And according to this particular diagram here, that's equivalent to 2 large tennis courts. Our bacteria are 10 to 50 times smaller than our cells. And as I mentioned previously, there are 10 times more bacteria than there are human cells through our body. So that gives you an idea of the ratio of that, 10 times smaller. And if that isn't interesting enough, if you laid these bacteria within our gut, it would circle the globe between 2 to 5 times. So that should give us an idea, again, of the population base of how much is in your gut microbiome. Let's go to the next slide. So where does bacteria or butyric acid come from? Well, it's produced in our colon by friendly bacteria that ferment our dietary fiber. That's kind of it in a nutshell. The microbiome breaks down the types of foods we eat, but only certain foods can pass through the stomach and into the small intestine and make it to the colon, where the bacteria that makes butyric acid is located. Fiber, along with prebiotics in our diet, can pass into our colon mostly undigested and can be used by certain healthy bacteria, such as probiotics, to be able to make the butyric acid. Now, let's go to the next one. So why do we need bacteria or butyric acid? I'm sorry. This is a good chart to just kind of walk through the variety of reasons for what butyric acid is good for. So starting in a 12 o'clock, if you look at it in a clock fashion, we're looking at antibacterial action. These are some of the things that butyric acid can do for our system that we can utilize it for. It's facilitating the absorption of the ions in water that we are drinking. It can provide the growth of the bacteria and the beneficial bacteria within the intestine. It is improving intestinal barrier by regulating tight junctions. So we're going to talk about leaky gut syndrome and how butyric acid helps to heal that particular disorder. Growth and differentiation of the enterocytes as well. And then it is our immune regulation. That is, butyric acid can improve how our immune system functions. Let's go to the next slide. So if you look at this particular slide, imagine, if you will, that this is your gut. You're now looking at it inside. The top version will be the, we'll say we're looking at the colon. The green strip in the center is essentially the cells that line the gut, the epithelial cells. And then below is the processes. Once you have the food coming from the upper level, which is coming in from your small bowel, this is where the mechanics of our nutrition occurs. So food and nutritional support for the body enters to the stomach, as dumped from the stomach into the small intestines. And then from the small bowel, here is the process of absorption and the effect butyric acid has on our gut health. As I said, the green area represents the epithelial cells, which line our colon. And then we talk about, if you look in the gray or in the green area, you'll see around the center of the initials ATP. This is endocyne triphosphate. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. Triphosphates, and that is essentially is a a chemical that provides the energy to drive the process in living cells. So you need the ATP to be generated to activate muscle contractions. It triggers nerve impulses and it activates chemical synthesis. And ATP can be found in all living life. And it's often referred as a molecular unit of currency, or our intercellular energy transfer. That is where we're getting what we're getting when the butyric acid is breaking down the food, and the butyric acid adds to the strength and the energy that the epithelial cells require. And when they're feeding on the butyric acid, this is a process that is triggered. Once you get past this epithelial cell lining, then you see the actual process of the nutrition entering into the bloodstream and moving forward. Some will go to the liver, some of it will go on into the blood flow, but this is the actual process, if you will, the mechanism that is occurring in a healthy gut system. Let's go to the next slide. So when we talk about butyric acid, how does it promote our health? Well, we all hear the term epigenetic function in these products. Well, epigenetic regulators are the molecules that control where and when certain genes are expressed. Again, those of us familiar with the NRF2 activator in genomics, this is what we're talking about, the ability of a protein to be able to enter into that nucleus and turn on or off these gene expressions. Butyric acid is a type of epigenetic regulator, and then it can alter the function of proteins that make these chemical changes to our DNA. So let's go to the next slide. Excuse me. So background on irritable bowel disorders. We've heard of ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, chronic relapsing inflammatory bowel diseases. Irritable bowel disease has become more common in our generation, and most of the world is experiencing a more than doubled increase in irritable bowel disorders prevalence in over just the past decade. And irritable bowel diseases in the U.S. is associated with poor health-related quality of life. Also, nutritionally is a factor as well. IBD has become more common, with approximately 1.6 million Americans currently diagnosed with IBD, and as many as 70,000 new cases are diagnosed each year. And there may be as many as high as 80,000 children in the United States that have been diagnosed with IBD. And there's an estimated over 160 genes that are associated with irritable bowel disorder. Most of the world is experiencing a more than doubled increase in this IBD prevalence. And the U.S. is associated, as I said, with poor quality of life and poor eating habits. Let's go to the next slide. So irritable bowel syndrome, even more common than irritable bowel disease. Symptoms this is an inflammatory bowel disease. It includes, I'm sorry, I'm talking about previous slide here. So symptoms associated with gastrointestinal dysfunction, such as irritable bowel syndromes, are estimated to occur into 10 to 30% of the world population. So IBS is similar, but less destructive compared to the irritable bowel disease. Like IBD, irritable bowel syndrome has gastrointestinal symptoms such as abdominal pain, cramping, bloating, gas, and other alterations in our bowel habits. So the difference between the two of them, IBD is the more invasive version, if you will, where you'll have actual damage to cell structure within the gut, where the irritable bowel syndrome, while the symptoms may be similar, is more of an inflammation induced pathology. Let's go to the next slide. So sources of butyric acid. You know, you can obtain butyric acid through the plants and foods that we eat. However, it's a poor bioavailability when you go that route, and it's not really measurable. In other words, we don't know how much you need to have of say eating butter, which is a good source for butyric acid, and it's not, because it's not measurable. We know that we're not receiving enough benefit from eating plants or of different foods that have butyric acid associated with them. We also can do it in supplements, but up until the point of our product being on the market, the problem with supplements is, as we know, they taste horrible because butyric acid tastes horrible. They smell horrible because butyric acid smells horrible. And again, it's a poor bioavailability, meaning that when you consume a capsule of butyric acid, it's not protected well enough to get through the stomach system in order to be utilized in the colon. So let's go to the next slide. So what are the impacts of a healthy or gut lining or leaky gut syndrome? This is another picture, the red drawing, if you will, on the left of your screen is another shot similar to the one that we just saw, with the cell lining being the green strip within the middle. If you look to the left of this particular drawing, you'll see nice pink healthy cells. This is the epithelial cells. And to the right side, you're seeing the inflamed cells that are either out of size or shrunk down. If they're really not getting enough butyric acid, they start to withdraw or shrink within themselves, leaving large gaps in between the two cells, where when you look on the left side of the screen where they're nice and tight, that's intended. Those little gaps in between are filters that allow the good nutrition to be absorbed into the bloodstream. But when you look at the damaged, inflamed cells on the right side, you can see that there is no filtration there. It just allows the bacteria or even food particles to try to get absorbed into the blood system. And this is really the trigger for autoimmune disease, is a start from leaky gut syndrome. So let's go to the next slide. So introducing LINQ, our cellular jet fuel. We know that this is an epigenetic formula, and it's been scientifically validated that it improves gut function and microbiome health, improves brain function, increases metabolism. It regulates the immune system, and it regulates inflammation, and also benefits the skin. Well, let's go to the next
Butyric acid forms this connection, not only between the biome, which are all the bacteria that live in our digestive system, and our guts, but also the immune system and then our brains. And it's that connection that really unlocks the power. Those systems need to communicate. They need to be able to function at a high level for us to thrive and to really feel well. And that's what butyric acid, and LINQ, if you will, does.
Okay, so going on, what makes Link so unique? Well, the sourcing of high quality ingredients is the start of it. Manufactured by a reputable company. It has two patent pending technologies, the Siloc and the Dex Key, and it increases the bioavailability of the butyric acid, and you no longer have the bad smell or the taste that's associated with that. I did a little bit of searching for exactly what the Siloc and trademark was. Siloc is an alpha dextrin fiber matrix, which is forms a little bit of a trap design. And the dextrins are a group of low molecular weight carbohydrates produced by hydrolysis of starch or glycerin. And so it allows this little trap, if you will. Let's go to DexKey as well, which is the process used in dietary supplements where an individual molecules or fatty acid enzyme or botanical extract are physically combined with a host molecule to enhance the therapeutic properties of the fatty acid enzyme or botanical extract. So these two together form a bit of a trap, if you will, that the molecule of the butyric acid is entrapped within this, and then it's protected, so that allows it to get through the system and into the gut, where that the alpha dextrin fiber matrix is then absorbed, and the molecule of butyric acid is released. So this is going to be the first product on the market that you can actually get a viable, usable, and measurable dose into into your gut biome and this is why our product is going to be so successful and why we're seeing such great results with it. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the actual patent for those two processes. And I guess all I can say about this is that because there's a patent that's being issued with this technology, we're not going to see another product on the market for a very long time that is going to have the capabilities that our Link product does. Let's go to the next slide. So what makes our Link product so unique? Well, I think we've kind of covered some of that. I would suggest we've already covered it, but in presentations, we like to tell you what we're going to tell you, and then we like to tell you what we're going to tell you, and then we like to tell you what we've told you. And so we're going to go back over some of this because we want to tell you what we've already told you. Let's go to the next slide. So Link improves gut function and microbiome health. That's the key to this. Link uses epigenetics to influence the genes, the MUC2 genes specifically, that are responsible for strengthening the lining of the gut and the stomach. This strengthening of the stomach and intestinal lining makes sure nutrients get absorbed properly and keeps harmful microorganisms from going where they don't belong. This also strengthens the link between the brain and the gut, since some 100 million neurons call the gut their home. Let's go to the next slide. So Link improves brain function. We know that it increases the creation of brain cells, the neurogenesis. It strengthens the blood-brain barrier. It improves the connection between the brain and the gut, or our gut-brain axis, if you will. And it moderates mood disorders, and key to the production of all neurotransmitters, as I said earlier, 90% of which are produced in the gut. Let's go to the next slide. And it Link increases metabolism. The ingredients in the Link have been shown to epigenetically increase the number of mitochondria, the power plants, if you will, of our cells, which are responsible for energy production and metabolism. It breaks down fat cells and improves insulin sensitivity, all of which helps to create and use more energy. These ingredients are also induce a hormone that makes you feel full faster, reducing your desire to overeat. Let's look at the next slide. We also know that LINQ regulates the immune system. LINQ regulates genes that have a positive impact on the immune system, which is largely housed or originates in the gut via signal molecules. And let's look at the next one. And LINQ regulates inflammation. It helps control inflammation and limit oxidative damage that contributes to inflammation throughout the body by regulating the genes responsible for cytokines and T cells. This providing protection in our blood vessel diseases, arthritis in joints, obesity, ulcer, IBS and IBD, as we talked about, infections, Alzheimer's, diabetes, autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and psoriasis. Let's go to the next one. And then, of course, it benefits our skin. The skin is our first barrier of the immune system. It lets good things in and keeps bad things out. It also has its own immune system built in, the health of which is dictated by gene expression. And LINQ not only encourages that healthy gene expression, it also induces collagen synthesis, which is what your skin needs to be strong and heal quickly. Let's go to the next one. So additional benefits of LINQ, as if we haven't already talked about enough of these. It continues to go on and on. In fact, I'll go as far to say that we yet to know just how effective this product is going to be until we start seeing it for longer term use in patients that we will provide this to. But we know that butyric acid downregulates genes that are involved in the biosynthesis of cholesterol and triglycerides. In animal studies, it results in increased energy expenditure in the form of body heat and increased physical activity. Butyric acid has been shown to have significant preventative influence on cardiovascular health. It reduces serum triglycerides by as much as 50% compared to controls. Butyric acid can reduce or inhibit certain microbiome responsible for generating propionic acid, and propionic acid is implicated in autism spectrum disorders. So I expect to see studies coming down the pike that will better tell us exactly the impact that our product will have in some of these cases. Butyric acid is important and readily available fuel for our body with many benefits. It not only is always easy to get from food or produce in the body, but by supplementation is the best way that we can add butyric acid into the system. One study I reviewed, the authors flat out said that they believe that butyric acid will be the most important supplement on the market today. And LINQ also contains prebiotics, and these will increase the body's ability to make its own butyric acid. I'm not sure if that's the last slide. And I actually just went over these particular comments in what I just mentioned. So now on to the last slide. Cellular jet fuel. That's a phrase we need to be stating often, because butyric acid, in the way it's produced with this embedded prebiotics, is what is going to energize our body and bring our whole system back to a healthy state, starting from the gut first, the gut microbiome, through the enteric nervous system and on to the brain and other organs in the body. I can't tell you as a person involved in science just how excited I am about this product. And it's just the matter of each of us doing our job to teach it and to get others to understand what a powerful product this LINQ product is. And with that, I'll turn the time back over to you, Daniel.